For today's drawing, we're going to create something a little bit more playful. A very loosely drawn doodle built from circles, lines and simple repetitive patterns. In a way, it feels a little bit childlike, and that's part of the charm. But with some simple shapes comes a very quick sense of achievement, and this drawing is really just about letting go of all of those adult expectations. I find it quite charming, and I hope you do too. So to begin, I'm just going to draw a border around the page in pencil. You can do this in pen if you prefer. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. It really doesn't matter. Now we're going to start by drawing a large partial circle in the lower left corner of the page. Bringing the line around until it finishes roughly about halfway up the right hand edge. And about 4 or 5 millimeters below that line, we're going to draw another curve that follows the same shape. Take this slowly and try to keep the spacing fairly even. If your line drifts slightly further out or in, that's absolutely fine, but do your best to try and keep it even. Below that, we'll draw a third line about 1.5 to 2 centimeters further down. And then a fourth line, keeping roughly the same spacing. And finally a fifth line about 4 to 5 millimeters below that. This lowest line is the one we're going to ink in. Now I'm using a black permanent gel pen today. I really enjoy how smoothly these pens just glide across the page, but you can use microns, unipins or any fine liner or felt tip pen if you prefer. The paper that I'm using today is a very smooth mixed media paper, which does mean that the gel ink takes a little longer to dry, so you'll see me moving around the page a little to try and avoid smudging my work. Now turn your page around and we're going to repeat the same set of curved lines just in the opposite corner. Again, start with the first line ending roughly about halfway along the edge of the page, and then the second line about 4 to 5 millimeters below that. So add the third line. If you keep your hand on the inside of the curve, it can make it a little bit easier to get a smooth curve. The fourth. And finally the fifth line, which we'll just ink in like we did before. So next we're going to add some small bobbles. Starting near the centre of the curve, draw a short straight line coming out from the solid band. Extend the line about 3 centimeters and then add a small circle on the end. And about halfway along either side, repeat the same process. Now they don't need to be perfectly spaced out. A slightly rustic look is going to work perfectly well. So in between these larger ones, we'll add a few more with slightly shorter stalks. Now turn the page and repeat this process on the other side. And next we're going to add some circular shapes in the middle of the page. So starting on the outer curved line, draw a circle slightly to the right of the partial arc we've already created. Now don't worry about making a perfect circle, allow it to be just a little bit uneven. Bring the line back around and reconnect it to the curved band. Turn your page and we'll draw another circle on the opposite side. Starting on the circle we've just drawn and bringing it around and meet the curve. This one's slightly smaller and that's absolutely fine. Now we're going to add a third circle to join the two. And then a fourth circle near the top edge. And a fifth circle just to kind of balance out that lower section. Now inside each of these circles we're going to draw the same concentric rings. Now do take your time with this part. It can be slightly harder to keep the spacing consistent with these full circles. So work slowly, take each section at a time and do turn your page as you need to. If a line drifts slightly closer or further apart from the previous line, don't worry about it too much. Like I said, this drawing is kind of meant to feel a little bit rustic and playful, so we aren't really looking for perfection. That's not really the goal here. Any minor imperfections we can also soften out later when we add all of the patterns and all of the colour. So just focus on the line you're drawing, and when you reach the innermost ring, fill that in with the ink. So you need to repeat that process for all of the 5 circles. And just be mindful not to drag your hand across wet ink. You might notice I've left one section unfinished for a moment, and that's simply to avoid smudging whilst the gel ink dries. Because the mixed media paper is less absorbent, the gel pen does tend to just sit on top of the page for a little while. Right, so on the outer ring of every single circle, we're going to add a series of tiny lines. We want to space them just a few millimetres apart and just slowly work your way around the circle. Little line after little line. As you're drawing these small repetitive lines, try just letting your thoughts drift away a little. Once that's done, what we're going to do now is draw some of the stalks with the bobbles on inside the smaller circles. Start with the top, then the left, then the right, and then the bottom. After that, you can fill in all of the spaces in between. Now, the stalks in these smaller circles will need to be quite short, but the idea is exactly the same. In the larger circles, we have more space, so we can add a few more. If a circle doesn't have room for too many stalks, just add what fits. Don't try to squeeze them all in. Just draw in what you can and then move on. Now let's return to the lower curved band. So now, working along this thick lower line, I'm going to draw a series of vertical lines extending outwards. Now sometimes I'm drawing 3 lines, sometimes 5 and sometimes 7, but between each of those groups of lines I'm going to leave a gap of about 1 centimetre, or maybe a bit more. There's no precision here, you have to let go of all precision. Just leave a gap, draw 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, leave a gap, draw 2, 3, 4 or 5 lines, maybe 6, maybe 7. It's entirely up to you. This is your work. You know, I'm giving you some loose instructions here, but do make this your own. On the thicker outer ring, we're now going to fill in that space with small circles. I'm just drawing them in. Some are large, some will be smaller, some might be a little bit squished, but you know, that variety just makes it all a little bit more interesting and fun. So I'm going to repeat that pattern on all the corresponding circular bands on the page. So protect my work whilst the ink dries, I often place a sheet of paper underneath my hand. But if you do this, just be careful not to press too hard when moving it across the page, because if the ink has stuck to the other side of this paper, you're then going to smudge it all over your work. If you're new to drawing or returning to art after a long break, exercises like this can be surprisingly helpful. The shapes are simple, the patterns repeat, and it just really helps to build your own confidence when putting pen to paper. I'd really appreciate it if you're enjoying this video, if you'd just hit that like button. Your support genuinely is very much appreciated and it keeps me going. Because these patterns are quite repetitive, you can start to relax a little bit and just simply follow the whole process through. And when you're drawing the vertical lines, try to keep them roughly perpendicular to the inner line and just let them fan outwards slightly. On the smaller circles, this can be a little bit trickier, but again, perfection isn't the key here. I must keep stressing that. So now it's time to add some colour, and today I'm just using some very inexpensive gel pens. I like them because they're easy to find and they're a really good medium when you've got lots of small areas like this. But yeah, of course, you can use any art medium that you prefer. So on the inner thick band of circles, I'm just going to colour the spaces in between the small barcode style lines. It's a very simple process, you've just got to colour them in. Sometimes this colouring stage is the most relaxing part because there is no thinking required, just that steady rhythmic colouring. These particular gel pens are metallic pens from Hobbycraft. They're very affordable and they glide really nicely on this mixed media paper. I mean, yeah, occasionally one of them might clog or kind of skip a bit, but yeah, overall they're quite reliable, especially for the price. So we're just going to work our way around the page, filling in the same sections in each circle with the same colour. So it kind of makes the design feel a bit more cohesive. And next we'll colour all of those small circles with another colour. This time I'm using a zebra glitter doodles in gold. These are wonderfully sparkly and surprisingly smooth to use. I love them to bits. And I'm not sponsored or endorsed by any of these companies. I love them. But I will also tell you if I don't like something as well. So anyway, I'm just going to fill in all of the small circles on the stalks with this lovely gold glitter doodler. Just working my way around the page, one little circle at a time. Tiny little circular motions until all the dots are complete. It's a bright, cheerful little drawing built from simple lines, circles and repeating patterns. But sometimes the most enjoyable drawings are the ones where we kind of let go of all of those expectations and just allow ourselves to experiment. And they take no brain power as well. You can just totally relax. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, do consider liking and subscribing and leaving a comment and all that sort of thing. Your support is very much appreciated. And I hope to catch up with you next week for my next video.